Welcome to the King's Report for November 22nd, Wednesday in 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung. We're in the 8th year of Cheongi and the 10th month and 5th day of this month. It's already the 5th day. Let's begin with the weather, and it's partly cloudy now in the Cheongguk area, and we're looking for a little bit of rain, maybe a couple of showers this morning, around the 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock hours, but the rest of the day it should be fairly cloudy and cooler than yesterday. We got up all the way up to, I think, 57 or something like that yesterday. It's really a spring day, wonderful sunshine and everything. But winter is certainly coming. It's going to get down to 19 tonight. And it's going to be a rather cool but dry Thanksgiving tomorrow. Today, I'm told, is the day when more people in America travel than any other day in the year. So I guess the airports and the highways are probably very busy and clogged in many places. So I hope that people can get to where they are, where they want to go safely. Let's go to our Rimas for this morning. Our first Bible Rima is Isaiah chapter 1, beginning with verse 1. The vision of Isaiah, the son of Amoz, which he saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for the Lord hath spoken. I have nourished and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass his master's crib, but Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. A sinful nation, a people laden with iniquity, a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken the Lord. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backward. Why should ye be stricken any more? Ye will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint. For from the sole of the foot even unto the head there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment. First 6 verses of Isaiah. Isaiah, of course, is a very long book, and we often we often look at the Word of God in the other chapters of Isaiah. This is how this book begins, with God lamenting, God crying out in tears over the way that what has happened with His chosen people. It took so much after the fall of Adam and Eve. It took so much work and so much sacrifice, so much time to establish the people of Israel through the victory of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then to bring them out of Egypt through Moses. And now in the time of Isaiah, things are not looking good. Things are not looking good. That the people of Israel have forgotten God, even though they came into being because of God and because of God's providence. If it weren't for the providence, they wouldn't even exist. And yet they've forgotten God. This reminds me very much of the situation with the blessed Central families today, that they have forgotten Father. They have now, even though all blessed Central families came into existence because of Father and by Father. You know, if I had not met Father, I would never have had any interest in Korea. I would not have learned Korean. I would have led an entirely different life. And the same is true with every other person who has received True Father's blessing. And who has, we met our spouses through True Father, and we came on this path as a result of True Father's providence. And if you're second generation, your parents did it, and you came about as a result of that. But now many have forgotten Father, and Father's image and Father's work is being erased by the Family Federation, and it remains only in the small remnant that is here in Newfoundland and other places around the world. But it's a very small remnant. And so, how sad Father must be. You may have seen the video that one member found on YouTube and has been passing around on various social media platforms about where one Korean leader is singing a song and Father is commenting on the song in the background as he is singing. And this is a song, the title of the song is Ursan Arirang. And I remember Father having this particular Korean leader, Mr. Hyung, sing this song on many occasions during one period there. And I was there when this happened on several occasions, but I never understood why Father had such an interest in this song. But watching this particular video and watching it in terms of what has happened over the last 5 years, I could feel much more deeply how Father must have felt at that time, because he could see where we were going, and it was so sad to him. The song is about a man who marries a Korean man who marries a foreign woman, but she leaves him, betrays him basically, and disappears. And he is the song is about his sorrow. About his sorrow, and I can't remember the exact words now, but something like where have you put your heart that you do not return to me? This kind of thing. And in Father's commentary, you could see very well that he's talking about the Han Mother, that he's talking about the betrayal of the Han Mother. This was in 2010, I believe, the particular video was made. And he's talking about the Han Mother, but not by name, but now that we see what has happened over the 5 years, we can see very clearly that this is what he was. And he's in tears. He's in tears. And you can see that this was the source of his sorrow at that time, even in 2010. God sent Isaiah so that the people of Israel could repent. And he sent other prophets so that they could repent. Because he always wants us to repent and to come back to him. And always there is a path back to God. One of the big differences between God and Satan is that Satan will point out our deficiencies and our sins, and will use those to accuse us and to tell us how bad we are and how we are worthless and how we do not deserve anything, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas God will, when we have repented, he will forgive us. And he will give us another chance, again and again and again and again and again. There is no limit to the number of chances that God will give us, if only we repent to him and sincerely express our desire to be with him and to unite with him and to become one with his heart. And this is where we can always find hope. Satan takes hope away from us. If we are feeling hopeless, it is because we have allowed ourselves to become the victims of Satan's accusations. God always gives us hope, so there's always hope in God. So if you are feeling hopeless right now, I hope that you will. I ask you to close your eyes in prayer and just to say to God, I'm sorry. I repent of all my sins, and God, I just want to be with you, and I want to receive you into my heart, and I want to have hope, because I know that you have created me in your image, and I know that I express a part of you that cannot be expressed by any other person, past, present, or future. So I ask you to guide me and to lead me into your kingdom. If you're feeling hopeless this morning, I ask you to pray that way. To repent, sincerely repent, and I promise you that God will give you hope. He will give you hope. So let's go to our Rima for the Cheonsongyong. This is, I'm in the book on the way in the completed Testament age, and chapter 2, a perspective on the family. Section 1, what is an ideal family? 1.1 is why is the family valuable? The family is the starting point where God's ideal can be manifested, as well as the happiness of humanity. It is the place where all individuals can have their efforts brought to fruition. We are, by the way, page 1496. Where all can be brought to fruition, and where all of God's work is fulfilled. Why is the family good? It is because the family is the base for all free activities based on parental love. An ideal family is a place where a God-centered eternal parental love, eternal conjugal love, and eternal filial love can be found. Everyone must have a family. A family is composed of parents, children, and their possessions. What entities can manifest the substantial horizontal development of the vertical history of the Old, New, and completed Testament ages? The creation of the children and the parents, that is to say, parents, their children, and the possessions, each one of them is required in order to form a family. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving Day, and many families will be gathering. And quite frankly, this is a stressful time for many families because people with varying political views and views of life would come together and sit around a table and start a discussion and can get into an argument and so forth. And also, there are many things remaining from childhood, from the past and everything. So sometimes, and quite often actually, for many families, it can be a stressful time. And that's unfortunate because that's not the way in which God intended the family to be. Instead, He intended it to be a God-centered institution but in today's society, there's so much pressure that is trying to destroy the family. Our whole society is set up to undermine the family. Both parents have to work. That in itself is a tremendous force undermining the integrity of the family. If children are left alone during certain hours of the day, where parents don't have time to spend with their children, or when they come home at night are too tired to talk with or communicate with their children. This is really tragic, and this is something that we need to resist, even at the cost of economic hardship. I would say we have to resist that. And be sure that children can receive the parental love that they need, both from the father and the mother, so that they can grow to become good in God's sight, righteous in God's sight. And there, of course, the schools are always intentionally trying to take the children away from the parents. That is not physically, but spiritually and psychologically. This is another way in which today's society is undermining the integrity of the family. And we need to resist that. Homeschooling, homeschooling, homeschooling. That's all I have to say, homeschooling. Homeschooling. So that the children can grow up knowing their parents and the parents knowing their children, and instead of becoming strangers. And in the university, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. The university professors try so hard to tell their students that their parents are ignorant, and it is the students, the young people's mission to bring their families or their parents into the modern age, or just cut away from them entirely. This is the public school education system that we have, and it's the university system that we have. And as people of God, we need to fight against that. We need to fight against that at all costs. At all costs, we need to fight against that. Everyone should have a family. A family is composed of parents, children, and their possessions. What entities can manifest the substantial horizontal development of the vertical history of the Old, New, and Complete Testament ages? The creation the children and the parents, that is to say, parents, their children, and their possessions. Each one of them is required in order to form a family. Yeah. I hope everyone has a very nice, wonderful Thanksgiving as you're preparing for that. Okay? All right, let's take a break, and we'll start going through the news when we come back.
Boy, wasn't that fun shooting this Tommy gun today?
It's always fun shooting Tommy guns. This one especially, it's just absolutely gorgeous.
All polished and chromed up. It really looks like $1 million.
Yeah. Elliot Ness would have loved one of those.
Yeah, and it's available right now in your favorite dealer, and you go pick one up.
Yeah, just have him call your distributor.
I mean, the gun, was initially made way back when, back in the 27 is this one.
Yeah, model 27.
I was surprised by how quick it knocked down those plates.
Oh, 3.5 second run, under 3.5 second run, knocking down a plate right. 341.
I mean, the gun is heavy. It's about, what, 12, 14 pounds, especially with this drum, but it's surprising how quick you can go with it. It would actually make quite a good self-defense rifle at home.
If I climbed in somebody's window and they were aiming that at me, I think I'd get out of there real quick. So
that sounds about right to me.
Just the intimidation factor alone.
Fire!
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, November 22nd, 2017. I'm Tim Mota sitting in for the second King of Cheongguk, Hyung Moon. Let's go through the Drudge Report headlines this morning. The Great Escape. This is the day when more people travel than any other day in the United States. And so people are going places, whether to their families or to their on some kind of a trip or whatever. And up here in the left-hand corner, we see Oprah fill in for Rose. Apparently, there's a possibility that Oprah Winfrey will be substituting for Charlie Rose on the various CBS programs, and perhaps NPR as well. I don't know. California struck by 134 tremors in a week on San Andreas Fault. Something shaking there. Update: mysterious booms heard in 64 locations worldwide. Experts are baffled. There are these booms, not all at once, but they've been heard during this year, I guess. And we don't know what the cause of it. Well, maybe someone knows. Business booming for America's survival food king. Yeah, this is an important story. We'll be getting into that later on. FCC Chief Pai killing net neutrality will set internet free. Soros bots flood agency. That's another story we need to get into later on. This idea of killing net neutrality, which was put in place by President Obama. Net neutrality sounds like a good thing, right? But we'll get into it. It's not. Google Schmidt, very difficult for search algorithms to understand truth. Apparently it takes a human brain. Brazil, that's Bidana, Brazil, 25 candidates in 2020. It's going to be busy. Author gets in tiff with Bannon security in elevator. Okay, AT&T merger challenge lands with judge who approved Comcast NBC. Wall Street Journal says dubious trust busting. Vegas to ban cars from Strip? Question mark. Navy plane crashes into Pacific. Yeah, it was carrying 11 people, and apparently 8 people are okay so far. Marines investigated for racial slurs in video. CVS employee accused of stealing $1 million lottery ticket. Boy. Padoret's Sex, Lies, and Excuses, Partisan Madness on Predators, a Disney hit. Chief Creative Officer taking leave amid missteps. Decades of whispers. Yeah. You know, of course, decades of people knowing that there was something wrong with Disney, that the sexualization, really what they've been doing is grooming young girls, especially young boys too, for sex. Disney really needs to be cleaned up. I don't think it's just a matter of one person. Trump endorses Judge Moore despite sex claims. Trump came out in favor of Moore yesterday, finally. He had campaigned for Luther Strange in the Republican primary. And, you know, when Moore's the allegations against Moore came out, the White House, some of the White House people were saying, well, you know, after all, President Trump didn't campaign for this guy, didn't want this guy in the first place, so forth and so on. But now he's saying, well, we don't want a liberal Democrat in that seat, in the Alabama seat. We need the votes to get the tax reform done and other things done. So now he's supporting Moore. The election is December 2nd, I believe. That's about, approximately 10 days, a little more. We'll see what happens with that, see whether President Trump's support will influence the election. Ex-Alabama cop prevented Moore from harassing cheerleaders. Says a bloom is off the rose. More women are coming out against Charlie Rose, revealed Weinstein's secret settlements. Another staff accuses Congressman Conyers of harassment. Boy, Democrats. Facebook still letting advertisers exclude by race. Fake ad operation used to steal from publishers uncovered. Big media merger talks herald new era of TV. DreamWorks campus sold to South Korean investors for $290 million. Tech boom creates new order for world markets. Why Wall Street record run may soon come to an end. Bull market has long memory of bearish times. Half cancer deaths blamed on unhealthy behavior. American seniors sicker than global peers. Christmas tree shortage expected to cause price hike. Ooh, what are you going to do? David Cassidy, dead at 67. Yeah. 57 million exposed in Uber breach. Hacker erases 30 million files from California transit system. A man to launch self and homemade rocket. I heard that he's trying to prove that the Earth is actually flat. Okay, well, good luck to him. NFL weighs keeping teams in locker room during anthem. They're trying all sorts of things, aren't they? FTC looks at TripAdvisor as travelers say warnings removed. PM, Prime Minister, quashes big bid to make French less macho. Update, French bank closes far-right accounts. Wow. Dozens of teachers resign over rampant student violence. Hospitals feeling pain of physician burnout. Dramatic video shows North Korean soldier escape across the border. We can watch that if we want. Let's start out with this thing on net neutrality. This is something that affects all of us because President Obama, at the time of the FCC, put in place rules that would treat the internet just like the telephone or other public utility. And the effect of that is that it will be regulated by the government. Anyway, let's read about this. In an exclusive interview today, just hours after announcing his plan to repeal net neutrality rules governing the actions of internet service providers and mobile carriers, Federal Communication Commission Chairman Ajit Pai has an in-your-face prediction for his critics. Over the coming years, we're going to see an explosion in the kinds of connectivity and the depth of that connectivity, he said this afternoon. Ultimately, that means that the human capital in the United States that's currently on the shelf, the people who don't have digital opportunity, will become participants in the digital community. Pai stressed that regulating the Internet under Title II framework, originally created in the 1930s, had led to less investment in infrastructure and a slower rate of innovation. Since the dawn of the commercial Internet, ISPs have been investing as much as they can in networks in order to upgrade their facilities and to compete with each other, he says. Outside of a recession, we've never seen that sort of investment go down year over year, but we did in 2015 after these regulations were adopted. In a Wall Street Journal column published today, Pai says Title II was responsible for a nearly 6% decline in broadband network investment as ISPs saw compliance costs rise and the regulatory atmosphere become uncertain. In his interview with Reason, Pai stressed that the real losers under net neutrality were people living in rural areas and low-income Americans who were stuck on the bad end of the digital divide. Proponents of net neutrality maintain that rules that went into effect in 2015 are the only thing standing between rapacious businesses such as Comcast, Verizon, where Pai once worked, and Spectrum, and an internet choking on throttled traffic, expensive fast lanes, and completely blocked sites that displease whatever corporate entity controls the last mile of fiber into your home or business. Pai says that is bunk, and noted that today's proposed changes, which are expected to pass full FCC review in mid-December, return the Internet to the light-touch regulatory regime that governed it from the mid-1990s until 2015. It's telling that the first investigations that the prior FCC initiated under these so-called net neutrality rules were involving free data offerings, said Pai, pointing towards actions initiated by his predecessor against zero-rating services such as T-Mobile's Binge program, which didn't count data used to stream Netflix, Spotify, and a host of other services against a customer's monthly data allowance. To me, it's just absurd to say that the government should stand in the way of consumers who want to get and companies that want to provide free data. The FCC is not completely evacuating its oversight role. ISPs, he said, will need to be completely transparent with customers about all practices related to prioritizing traffic, data caps, and more. Pai believes that market competition for customers will prove far more effective in developing better and cheaper services than regulators deciding what is best for the sector. In wireless, he says, there's very intense competition. You have 4 national carriers and any number of regional carriers competing to provide 4G LTE and a number of different services in those marketplaces where there's not as much competition as we'd like to see. To me, at least, the solution isn't to preemptively regulate as if it were a monopoly, as if we're dealing with Ma Bell, but to promote more competition. Pai says that one of the major mistakes of net neutrality is its preemptive nature. Rather than allowing different practices to develop and then having regulators intervene when problems or harms to customers arrive, net neutrality is prescriptive and thus likely to serve the interests of existing companies in maintaining a status quo that's good for them in terms of enforcement of anti-competitive practices. Pai says the Federal Trade Commission is better equipped to deal with problems. The FTC can take action even in the absence of finding consumer harm, he notes. So even if consumers aren't harmed, if FTC regulators deem a particular business practice, any business practice, to be unfair or deceptive, they have authority under Section 5 to take action against it. So that's a pretty powerful tool that they've used even in the last couple of years against telecom providers and others in the Internet economy whom they believe are not protecting consumers. In the wide-ranging conversation, I asked Pai to lay down specific benchmarks by which consumers might judge whether repealing net neutrality rules isn't a mistake. He pointed to factors such as the number of fixed and mobile connections, the average costs and speeds of Internet plans, and the volume of capital investment as indicators by which his policy could be held accountable. He also stressed that the increasing shift from traditional ISPs to mobile wireless will benefit from a loose regulatory framework, including the opening up of spectrum that is either underutilized, off limits, or otherwise gathering dust. We're entering a new era of technology known as 5G, and that's going to involve massive amounts of investment in networks and spectrum, and that's the kind of thing that will be a big breakthrough for consumers on the wireless side. Referencing Benedict Evans, a partner at the venture capital firm Anderson Horowitz, Pi believes that mobile is eating the world. All of these services are migrating to wireless, and particularly in the future, whether we're talking about low bandwidth applications like monitoring yogurt trucks that drive across the countryside, or high bandwidth applications like virtual reality. A lot of this is going to be taking place over wireless. Yeah. So, the important thing here is that net neutrality is a system whereby the government is regulating the internet. And as Pi says, it's prescriptive. It says we want to prevent certain things. Whereas he's saying, well, let's have government get out of the way, and then we'll just make sure that the ISPs and other providers are being transparent. And if we see something, someone doing something that's deceptive or wrong, then we'll deal with that instead of just trying to maintain a status quo that's only good for the people, for the companies that are currently there. And George Soros is fighting this very, very aggressively, which tells you, a lot. And they're sending all sorts of comment bots, which are just flooding the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. This is an InfoWars article. Soros, a pro-censorship coalition, floods FCC with bot-generated campaign to keep Obama net neutrality rules. This Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, FCC Chairman Ajit V. Pai is expected to circulate to his fellow commissioners and make public a draft of a new FCC order widely anticipated to eliminate the net neutrality rules put in place under the Obama administration. The full commission is scheduled to vote on Pai's draft order at its December 14th meeting, and again, the FCC is expected on that date to ratify Pai's draft order. By making the order to repeal net neutrality public in advance of the vote, Chairman Pai has instituted a new transparency initiative at the FCC that reverses the policy of the previous chairman, Obama administration FCC Chairman Tom Wheeler, who typically refused to make draft orders public prior to the full FCC Commission final vote. So already you see he's being transparent. What is clear from an examination of the public comments from the political left supporting the retention of the Obama net neutrality rules have flooded the FCC comment space with bot-generated, often foreign-sourced comments that have generated unrelated, racist, and even violent remarks in high volume. On July 13, Infowars.com reported that a coalition formed by George Soros, including internet giants Google, Facebook, Amazon, as well as the salacious, extreme, and abusive sex website Pornhub, had flooded the FCC with thousands of citizen comments coming from Russia, of all places, opposing the FCC's planned repeal of the Obama-era net neutrality rules. A study by Washington, D.C. information specialist Prada demonstrated that more than 7.5 million comments opposing the repeal of net neutrality rules, the largest percentage of comments on any FCC topic, fully 36% of all FCC comments, appear to have been generated by self-described and disposable email domains attributed to fakemailgenerator.com and with nearly identical language. Adjusting the 13 million total comments who opposed repealing net neutrality rules for bot-generated fake comments, Prada found the legitimate comments supporting Pai's move to repeal net neutrality beat the legitimate comments wanting to keep the Obama-era rules by 61%, favoring the repeal of Title II Internet governance versus 38% wanting to maintain the net neutrality rules that would retain Title II governance of the Internet as a telecommunications utility. So, those arguing for the repeal argue Pai's campaign to end Title II regulation is a noble cause, a move that does not kill net neutrality but rather reverses the unprecedented power grab of the Obama-era FCC in conjunction with the tech left forces in Silicon Valley, Sorocon's Open Society Foundation, and the Ford Foundation. Trump supporters backing Pi note the Internet's growth, explosive innovation, and the flow of free expression occurred free from public utility regulation. Ironically, since the 2015 rules were put in place, instances of blocking and censoring have only occurred at a rapid pace on platforms owned by Facebook, Google, and Twitter, which all lobbied hard for the 2015 net neutrality rules, which were carefully crafted so as to not touch those companies. InfoWars has previously documented Google, together with George Soros' Open Society Institution and the Ford Foundation, have spent more than $72 million to nonprofit leftist organizations that have been the most active in promoting the idea that the Internet needs to be regulated by the government as a common carrier public utility under the Communications Act, the same regulatory framework crafted decades ago to regulate the old rotary phone system. Infowars.com has previously warned that Google and the largest communications giants on the Internet lobbied the federal government to define broadband under these 1930s-style regulations, a designation that would allow the government to regulate more rigorously the broadband providers that build the core network connecting users to the Internet as a common carriers. Well, the Internet has been a tremendous value in the current age because it gives transparency and it gives us a venue to, for example, even this broadcast would not be possible without the Internet. A single person like myself can go on the Internet and potentially speak to the world, potentially. And people who are interested in the broadcast can listen to it anywhere in the world. That's a tremendous, that's really a revolutionary thing. The printing press really was a revolutionary thing, and the Internet is a similarly revolutionary thing. So of course the government wants to regulate it. Of course the government wants to get in there and try to figure out ways where they can censor some people, and let some messages get out, not others. And so this net neutrality rule, as I said, when it was crafted by the Obama administration, was carefully crafted so as to exempt Google and Facebook and what was the other one? What was the third one? Google, Facebook, and Twitter. These were exempted from those rules, and so they have been doing the censoring. But getting rid of these rules now then will allow more infrastructure investment, and will allow for different types of business models and different types of ways in which people can use the Internet, and more people will be able to use the Internet. All right, let's take a break now, and we'll come back with more news in just a minute.
Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, November 22nd, 2017. And I'm Tim Miller sitting in for the second King of Chanungook. Let's look at how business is booming for America's survival food king. A year of natural disasters and nuclear threats has suburbanites turning to wise companies. Aaron Jackson, just in case. This is a Bloomberg.com story. On Monday, September 25, 5 days after Hurricane Maria pounded Puerto Rico, Aaron Jackson got a LinkedIn notification on his phone from Michael Lee, supply chain and inventory manager for the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Contact me right away, it read, followed by a number. Jackson was at Blue Lemon, a fast casual restaurant in Sandy, Utah, outside Salt Lake City, eating dinner with his family. He stepped outside and dialed. Lee needed help fast. FEMA was running low on food rations. In the previous 4 weeks, the agency had supplied millions of meals to the Texans and the South Floridians displaced by Hurricanes Harvey and Irma. Maria had created a third disaster zone with more complex logistics, having knocked out Puerto Rico's electricity, gutted its roads, and destroyed its markets and ports. Restoring food security on the island could take months. Lee had to procure millions of servings of just add water meals to sustain the victims. Could Jackson provide at least $2 million and begin deliveries immediately? Jackson is the 42-year-old chief executive officer of Wise Company, a leading brand in survival foods. That is, Mylar pouches of freeze-dried meals such as savory stroganoff and loaded baked potato casserole designed to remain edible on shelves for a quarter century. Over the past several years, the prepper phenomenon, people geared for imminent disaster, has come out of the backwoods via shows like National Geographic Channel's Doomsday Prepper and media reports of the very rich and very worried buying and fortifying luxury bunkers. Jackson's been positioning Wise to feed the trend. During the call, he felt a rush of conflicting emotions, not so much from the prospect of getting a fat government contract while legions of people suffer, but because the windfall could derail his business strategy. A 2 million serving order will increase his sales for 2017 about 15%, but stretch his supply more than he's comfortable with. His answer to Lee was not an easy yes. Jackson has filled many emergency orders, including supplies for Ebola victims in Liberia and for people in the Philippines devastated by 2013's earthquake. Carnival Cruise Line has stocked Wise pouches at its Caribbean ports to feed employees when storms rock the region. Just a few days before the FEMA call, the Salvation Army purchased 100,000 servings of Wise products for Florida shelters near areas affected by Hurricane Irma. But these last-minute orders aren't how Jackson wants to define his core business. Since 2013, when he came on as CEO, he's been trying to move the company beyond the volatile disaster response industry. I'm not going to turn down an incredible opportunity, he says, but I'm also not after sporadic clients. I want predictability. I want Mr. and Mrs. Smith in every town USA, the Walmarts, the Home Depots. Those are my golden geese. If a big order from FEMA interrupts our supply to staple customers, that's a risk I shouldn't take. For someone working in an industry defined by worst-case scenario extremism, Jackson is notably moderate in appearance and philosophy. Tall, tidy, and well-coiffed, he looks like Clark Kent, but a Kent who'd be content never to don his cape and is facing middle-aged metabolic slowdown. Okay, I know what that means. When I meet him at Wise's headquarters, in Salt Lake City, he's wearing a quilted jacket, pressed khakis, and polished shoes that match his belt. He drives a BMW 5 Series sedan and looks like a man who's comfortable on the golf course, which he is, having played competitively in his youth. And Jackson's lived in Utah since high school, when his family moved there from a suburb of Los Angeles. After graduating from the University of Utah, he spent the first 15 years of his career selling chicken nuggets and honey bunches of oats, among other kitchen table icons, first at Tyson Foods, Inc., where he specialized in frozen cutlet products, and then at Post Consumer Brands Cereals, where he became a vice president for sales and marketing. Now he's relying on his corporate experience to suburbanize survivalism, a goal that seems at once respectable, preposterous, and suddenly attainable. Why would it be preposterous? Anyway, Jackson first connected with the Wise in 2012 when a headhunter tried to recruit him from Post to run the fast-growing startup. He declined the offer but commenced some research. My aha came in mid-2012 when I read that more than half of American homes have first aid kits on hand, along with fire extinguishers and flashlights. I realized then that they haven't added the food component. I saw incredible growth potential. When the headhunter extended the offer again a few months later, Jackson accepted the job of CEO and cautiously started to shift the marketing focus to his ideal customer, one who looks like Ted Kaczynski and less like Ted Kaczynski and more like himself. His wife, who is an attorney, and their two tweens, someone who isn't entirely convinced that humanity is hurtling toward annihilation, but who's willing to stock the pantry with a Mylar-fortified food supply just in case. This is the food equivalent of life insurance, staples that every American household in this age of uncertainty should have, he says. Jackson hired a young designer who'd been at the surf company Quicksilver to revamp the packaging. We've been selling our products in large black plastic tubs. We needed something that doesn't scream doomsday, so we moved to clean white boxes, contemporary fonts, high-quality food images, packaging that makes sense on a Target shelf, Jackson says. As orders came in from big box stores, he added a manufacturing facility a 15-minute drive from the office that can produce 25 million pouches a year. In the past 4 months, the spate of natural disasters combined with the specter of nuclear war with North Korea has pushed up Wise's total sales 40% from the previous 4-month period. Concerned suburbanites as well as disaster responders have contributed to the increase. The factory has made it possible for Jackson to meet both sudden surges and steady growth in demand. He ultimately managed to ship the 2 million servings to FEMA in a matter of weeks with only a brief disruption of his regular customers' supply. In 4 years, Wise's annual retail sales have more than doubled to about $75 million. Using his network of former clients, Jackson persuaded Walmart stores, Target, Home Depot, and Bed Bath & Beyond to carry Wise products. In 2014, he also persuaded Home Shopping Network to feature the company's wares. The TV network has become its biggest distributor, but at this point, only 2% of Americans have bought into survival foods, according to industry analysis. Wise's two main competitors, Emergency Essentials LLC and Mountain House, are, like all companies in the industry, privately held and don't report sales data, but Jackson estimates that survival food sales total about $400 million annually. Jackson sees the survival food industry today where the organic industry was in the 1950s, before Americans got nervous about pesticides, poised to explode. Still, Darren Seifer, a food and beverage analyst at MPD Group, cautions the industry could just as easily remain on the fringe, gathering dust on pantry shelves. So it goes on and goes on and goes on. This a feature piece on a Wise. See here if there's anything else interesting that catches my eyes. Jackson's technology isn't new. Wise practices a 21st century version of something the Incas started in roughly 1200 AD, when they placed meat strips on high-altitude stone platforms to freeze overnight and then dry in the sun to make charqui, a proto-beef jerky. Modern freeze-drying methods were created during World War II to preserve blood serum so it could be shipped internationally to treat the wounded. First a few years ago, to me this man. Okay, I guess that's about it. All right. So this is some photographs here of the Wise products. Yeah. It seems like a good idea to me. I don't know why this author says it's preposterous. Bloomberg, I guess he hasn't quite gotten the message that we need to be prepared for this kind of thing. You know, in addition to the things that he mentioned, the natural disasters and North Korean nuclear, hey, haven't you heard the investors, Jim Rogers and others, saying that we may be facing the worst economic crisis, even worse than the Great Depression? This is Bloomberg. They should have read that article. So there are any number of things that could happen that would make this kind of food come in handy. And it's going to keep for a quarter century, 25 years, and if nothing happens, eat it. No harm done, right? All right, let's take another break, and we'll be back with more news from a Chonic perspective.
there, folks. And look at what I've got here today. My God, take a look at this. This is a BFR in 454 Casull with an octagonal barrel, magna porting, micarta grips. And look at that, it even has my initials on it, JM. Look at that thing of beauty, my God. Pop open the cartridge insertion door, and look at that cylinder spin. The finest revolvers in the world. That's a cannon. That's a cannon. Oh, man. Pretty accurate, though. That's our target. Oh boy! Massive recoil.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, November 22nd, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Chanukuk, Hyung Jin-moon. Let's look at what's going on with this Pixar thing, this Disney. Pixar chief John Lasseter taking leave of absence after misconduct allegations. You know, these people make movies for children, and these are the kind of people they are. And we've known for quite some time that these animated features have been very much influencing our children, especially the younger children, in ways that sort of well, it's a kind of grooming, you know, it's sexualization, and this is where it's coming from. Pixar co-founder John Lasseter is taking a leave of absence from the storied animation house after a report detailed several allegations of misconduct from company employees. In a memo to company employees issued Tuesday, the 60-year-old executive said he had recently had a number of difficult conversations he described as, quote, very painful, unquote. Quote, it's been brought to my attention that I have made some of you feel disrespected or uncomfortable. That was never my intent. Collectively, you mean the world to me, and I deeply apologize if I've let you down, unquote, Lasseter wrote in the statement obtained by The Hollywood Reporter. I especially want to apologize to anyone who has ever been on the receiving end of an unwanted hug or any other gesture they felt crossed the line in any way, shape, or form. No matter how benign my intent, everyone has the right to set their own boundaries and have them respected. The memo comes after The Hollywood Reporter published a story Tuesday featuring accounts from Pixar employees and insiders detailing allegations of a history of misconduct against Lasseter. Sources told the outlet that actress Rashida Jones, who had been working as a writer on Toy Story 4, left the project early after Lasseter made an unwanted advance on her, though the report did not go into further detail about the alleged incident. Jones and her writing partner Will McCormick did not comment for the THR story. The report also quoted a longtime Pixar employee who alleged that Lasseter was known for grabbing, kissing, and making comments about physical attributes. Other sources told the outlet that employees had a move they termed the Lasseter, meant to discourage the executive from putting his hands on their legs. Lasseter would reportedly take a 6-month leave of absence again amidst the allegations. In my conversations with Disney, we are united in our commitment to always treat any concerns you have with the seriousness they deserve and to address them in an appropriate manner, Lasseter wrote to employees Tuesday. We also share a desire to reinforce the vibrant, respectful culture that has been the foundation of our studio's success since the beginning. And we agree the first step in that direction is for me to take some time away to reflect on how to move forward from here. Lasseter co-founded Pixar in 1986 and went on to direct Toy Story, the first fully computer-generated animated film for which he won a Special Achievement Academy Award. The filmmaker also directed Toy Story 2, A Bug's Life, Cars, and Cars 2, and has served as a producer on all of Pixar's films. Pixar is set to release its latest animated film, Coco, on Friday. More illustration of how Hollywood has been corrupting us, our children, and us in general, and more illustration of how we need to really back and support the Christian movies that are coming out, and not these. Now, on the other hand, Donald Trump saying that Congress should release the names of members who settle harassment cases. Yeah, that's what I've been saying. President Donald Trump believes that Congress should release the names of every lawmaker who settled harassment cases quietly with taxpayer money. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You know, if you're gonna pay your own settlement, and that's okay. I could see that's your business, even though still you're a member of Congress, and there should be some transparency there. But especially if you're going to use my money to pay off someone that you've been harassing, then I need to know about that. All right, I need to know about that. I want to know who you're paying off and who you are. More than who you're paying off, I want to know who you are. I want to know who you are. Who are the members of Congress that have been using my money and your money too to pay off, to make these sexual harassment settlements? I really do. I think they should, Trump said when asked about his opinion on proposed transparency for the Congressional Office of Compliance. Trump also reacted to several reports of prominent men in the media, entertainment, and politics accused of unwanted advances, harassment, and sexual misconduct and abuse towards women. When asked by reporters to respond to the pivotal moment in our nation's history for women, Trump appeared pleased that improper behavior was getting exposed. Women are very special, he said. I think it's a very special time because a lot of things are coming out, and I think that's good for our society, and I think it's very, very good for women. Trump did not respond to questions about the women who accused him of harassment during his campaign for president. He said he didn't want to speak for Senator Al Franken after a photo surfaced of the comedian groping a woman in her sleep, as he declined to say whether he thought the Minnesota senator should resign. As far as Franken is concerned, he's going to have to speak for himself, Trump said. I'd rather have him speak for himself. Trump also said that he had heard about the settlement reached by Congressman John Conyers 2 minutes before he left the White House, but did not comment on the case. All right, and then we also have President Trump pretty much endorsing Judge Moore now in Alabama, despite those allegations against Judge Moore, and the CNN political director is saying, well, that's because he doesn't want to be against the Bannon wing of the Republican Party. CNN is now coining this phrase, the Bannon wing of the Republican Party, trying to marginalize what Steve Bannon is trying to do. CNN political director David Chalian believes President Donald Trump signaled his support for Alabama GOP Senate candidate Judge Roy Moore on Tuesday because Trump does not want to be against the Bannon wing that fervently supports the agenda that got Trump elected. Former White House chief strategist Steve Bannon has been championing Trump's economic nationalist agenda from coast to coast since leaving the White House. And he's also executive chairman of Breitbart.com, where we find this article. Chalian said Trump doesn't want to be crosswise with his base because Trump knows that all of the energy is with the Bannon wing, which has not abandoned Moore. He doesn't want to be on the wrong side again with those these voters, as he was in the runoff election. Chalian added. Trump signaled his support for Moore by saying he has looked at Democrat Doug Jones' record and it's terrible on crime, it's terrible on the border, and it's terrible in the military. We don't need a liberal Democrat in that seat, Trump said. In the Alabama GOP Senate runoff, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and his anti-Trump establishment allies somehow convinced Trump to back D.C. establishment Senator Luther Strange. Bannon endorsed and campaigned for Moore, who ended up thumping Strange. Those who backed Moore in the runoff argued that a vote for Moore would be a vote for Trump's agenda, and Moore's campaign made the same argument during a Tuesday press conference. Dean Young, Moore's campaign advisor, said that Alabamians cannot elect Doug, the liberal Democrat Jones, because he will back judges who support partial birth abortions. Young said Moore is going to help Donald Trump pass tax reform and build the wall, while Doug Jones is not for stopping Obamacare. Judge Moore will help President Trump get done what needs to be done, Young added. A recent 538 study found that Bannon wing actually represents a major part of the modern Republican Party. 538 determined that Bannonism, which is in nearly every Republican voter, is populist, nationalist, and non-interventionist. The so-called Bannon wing, according to the study, consists of voters who are pro-police, against unfair trade deals, and that screw American workers, strongly against illegal immigration, against adventures abroad that are not in the national interest, and favor more infrastructure projects to rebuild America. Yeah. So President Trump pretty much came out yesterday to endorse Judge Roy Moore, and the main reason seems to be that he has to have the numbers. He has to have the votes in the Senate. If he loses that seat to the Democrats, then the Democrats will go up from 48 to 49, and the Republicans will go from 52 to 51. And that'll make it even more difficult for a president to carry out his program. And as far as the allegations of sexual misconduct that happened almost 40 years ago, President Trump says, "Hey, he denies it," and that's true. And a person is not guilty until he's been proven that, and until that time, he's innocent. And so President Trump is giving him the benefit of the doubt for that reason, but also for political reasons too, of course, that he needs those votes in the Senate. And he certainly does not need another liberal Democrat in the Senate. All right, let's take another break, and we'll be back in a minute or so with more news from a Tony Group perspective.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group, with a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group, made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, November 22nd, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Jin-moon. And let's look at this story. Nearly half of U.S. cancer deaths are blamed on unhealthy behavior. New look at cancer in the U.S. finds that nearly half of cancer deaths are caused by smoking, poor diet, and other unhealthy behaviors. That's less than commonly cited estimates from more than 35 years ago, a result of new research methods and changes in American society. Smoking rates have plummeted, for example, while obesity rates have risen dramatically. The study found that 45% of cancer deaths and 42% of diagnosed cancer cases could be attributed to what the authors called modifiable risk factors. These are risks that are not inherited and mostly the result of behavior that can be changed, like exposure to sun, not eating enough fruits and vegetables, drinking alcohol, and most importantly, smoking. A British study conducted in 1981 attributed more than two-thirds of cancer deaths to these factors. The study used 2014 data and was conducted by the American Cancer Society. It was published online Tuesday in a cancer journal for clinicians. We thought it was time to redo those estimates, said Dr. Otis Brawley, the Cancer Society's chief medical officer and one of the study's authors. Smoking was the leading risk by far, accounting for 29% of deaths. Excess body weight was next at 6.5%, and alcohol consumption was third at 4%. The authors ran separate calculations for different types of cancer by age group and gender to try to account for how risk factors affect different groups of people, then added them together to understand the national picture. Among the findings, smoking accounted for 82% of lung cancers. Excess body weight was associated with 60% of uterine cancers and about one-third of liver cancers. Alcohol intake was associated with 25% of liver cancers in men and 12% in women, 17% of colorectal cancers in men and 8% in women, and 16% of breast cancers in women. That was all alcohol intake, was all that. Exposure to ultraviolet radiation from sunlight or tanning beds was associated with 96% of skin cancers in men and 94% in women. Richard Clapp, a professor emeritus of environmental health at Boston University, expects the new numbers to be widely cited and used to make decisions about how to spend money on cancer prevention, just as the influential British study from 1981 by researchers Richard Dahl and Richard Peto has been. Clapp said there is still room for improvement, however. He said the study doesn't address how two or more risk factors like smoking and drinking might work together in some cancer cases and deaths. Also, aside from secondhand cigarette smoke, the researchers did not include outdoor or indoor air pollution because the data on the cancer risk from pollution is not detailed enough to understand the national impact, said the study's lead author, Dr. Farhad Islami. Okay. So get your diet right and stop smoking. We referred to this already, but Trump all but endorses GOP's Moore despite 6 accusations. Silent for more than a week, President Donald Trump all but endorsed embattled Alabama Republican Senate nominee Roy Moore on Tuesday, discounting the sexual assault allegations against him and insisting repeatedly that voters must not support Moore's liberal rival. The president said he would announce next week whether he will campaign for Moore, who faces Democrat Doug Jones in a December 12th, December 12th, special election to fill the seat once held by Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Trump, who won the election despite facing more than a dozen accusations of sexual misconduct himself, dismissed questions from reporters about backing a Republican accused of sexual assault over a man who is a Democrat. Trump pointed to Moore's assertions that he did nothing wrong. Roy Moore denies it, and that's all I can say, Trump said. In fact, he repeated 10 times in a 5-minute session outside the White House that the GOP candidate has denied any wrongdoing. 2 Alabama women have accused Moore of that's a review of what we already know. Trump didn't explicitly say what he was endorsing Moore, but he said with emphasis, we don't need a liberal person in there. We don't need somebody who is soft on crime like Jones. He also noted that the allegations came from behavior alleged to have happened decades ago. 40 years is a long time, Trump said, questioning why it took so long for Moore's accusers to come forward. Former Senator Sessions has said he has no reason to doubt the allegations against Moore. Republican leaders in Washington have called for Moore to leave the race, and White House has repeatedly said Trump himself felt Moore would do the right thing and step aside if the allegations proved true. But Trump had been publicly silent until Tuesday when he exchanged questions and answers with reporters, shouting to be heard over the noise of his Marine helicopter waiting to take him to Air Force One, which then flew him to his Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida. Then a review of what we already know. Republican leaders briefly explored the possibility of a write-in, but that didn't work. And then the Democratic representative John Conyers acknowledged on Tuesday that his office settled a sexual harassment complaint involving a former staffer, though he vehemently denied allegations in the complaint. BuzzFeed reported that Conyers' office paid a woman more than $27,000 under a confidentiality agreement to settle a complaint in 2015 that she was fired from his Washington staff because she rejected the Democrats' sexual advances. Let's see. That's about it for this story. So anyway, it looks like President Trump is going to come out in favor of Moore or to endorse him. He's already saying that we cannot have someone like Doug Jones in the Senate. And Breitbart is giving more information in support of Judge Moore. Court documents raise significant questions about Lee Corfman's accusations against Moore, for example. Mexico First, Roy Moore slams Doug Jones on amnesty and border, etc. So Breitbart is certainly continuing its all-out support for Judge Roy Moore. The State Department turns on Rex Tillerson, accuses their own Secretary of State, their own boss, of violating a law, violating the child soldier law. It sounds like a little deep state thing to me. Nearly a dozen U.S. State Department officials have accused their boss, Secretary Rex Tillerson, of breaching American law by excluding Iraq, Myanmar, and Afghanistan from a U.S. list of countries that turn a blind eye to the abhorrent use of child soldiers, reports Reuters, citing internal government documents. Reuters notes that keeping the countries off the child soldiers prevention list made it easier for U.S. President Donald Trump's administration to provide military assistance to Iraq and Afghanistan in their fight against Islamic terrorism and to bolster Myanmar's ability to push back against China's growing influence in Southeast Asia. So this is a balance of priorities here, isn't it? Do you put countries on the list, knowing that doing so will make it more difficult under the U.S. laws to provide military assistance for the fight against Islamic terrorism, and to provide military assistance for a country like Myanmar to push back against China's growing influence? Beyond contravening U.S. law, this decision risks marring the credibility of a broad range of State Department reports and analyses, and has weakened one of the U.S. government's primary diplomatic tools to deter governmental armed forces and government-supported armed groups from recruiting and using children in combat and support roles around the world, declared the state officials in a July 28th dissent memo, reports Reuters, describing the accusations as unusual. And this paragraph I found particularly disturbing, where it says, in Afghanistan, listen to this carefully, in Afghanistan, the Taliban uses child soldiers to kill members of the Afghan National Defense and Security Forces, in other words, the government forces, by exploiting the officers' affinity for child sex slaves, the prevalent centuries-old pedophilic custom of bachabazi, or playing with boys. You get that? The government forces, officers in the government forces of Afghanistan have this custom. They said, hey, it's centuries old. It's a custom of pedophilia, a culture of pedophilia. And they have a name for it, playing with boys. And so the Taliban make use of that, and I guess they train the young boys to be soldiers. In other words, train them how to kill, and then send them into the Afghan government forces as sex slaves, so that they can go in and they can kill their masters. And that's part of the Afghan, the Taliban's way of getting to these officers and killing them. But that paragraph just underlines for me the value again of the Judeo-Christian tradition, and how that is the central avenue of God's providence, and how different religions. This is Afghanistan, so it'd be Islam, and I don't know if this is unique to Afghanistan or to other Islamic countries as well. But to have this custom, this culture, this history, this century-old tradition of pedophilia, of playing with boys. Let's look at some other articles here. That the tech boom creates new order for world markets. This is a Wall Street Journal article. Tech rally goes global, powering major stock indexes to fresh records. Shares of global technology companies are outpacing other sectors this year by the widest margin since the height of the dot-com era, with a handful of key players dictating how markets are performing around the world. That dynamic was on display again Tuesday when the NASDAQ composite rose 1.06% to end its 67th record close in 2017, the highest number of record closes in any year. Shares of Apple Inc. rose 1.9%, while International Business Machines Corp. added 1%. Microsoft Corp. was up 1.4%. putting the three tech giants among the biggest contributors to the Dow Industrials gain on Tuesday. Tech gains boosted the broader market. The S&P 500 and Dow Jones Industrial Average also closed at record highs, rebounding after a rare downstretch during the previous 2 weeks. Blue chip stock indexes in Europe and Asia closed higher. In a sign that the tech rally is going global, Chinese internet company Tencent Holdings Limited rose 2.4% after intraday gains briefly put the company's market capitalization at around $530 billion, larger than Facebook's $528 billion. Tencent hit $500 billion for the first time Monday. Just 8 companies, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Alphabet, Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent have increased by $1.4 trillion in market cap in 2017, a sum roughly equivalent to the combined annual GDP of Spain and Portugal. Wow. This is the tech is really booming, and because of that, the stock market as a whole is going up. The indices are going up. I just wonder, people keep warning, hey, it can't last, it can't last, it can't last. We'll have to see how far it lasts and when it comes crashing down. Because it is going to come crashing down, isn't it? One thing you do know about the stock market is that what goes up must come down, must come down. That's a iron rule of the stock market, especially this time when the people who are against Trump are going to be trying everything in their power to stop him, because he's tearing down their system. He's giving America back to the people. He's giving the world back to the people, and they just don't want that. And so you could very well expect that they will engineer some kind of a market crash and an economic crash. Americans getting ready to pick out the perfect Christmas tree may want to bring a little extra cash with them this year. A shortage of local trees in several U.S. states is likely to make prices rise and the window to find a good tree much smaller. Of course, if you have the land, you can grow your own tree. I think people ought to do that. According to reports, the tree farms in North Carolina and Oregon have been hit by the hardest by the nationwide shortfall this year. The smaller supply is expected to hike prices by as much as 10% during the holiday rush. There's a touch of an undersupply, National Christmas Tree Association spokesman Doug Hudley told Newsweek. If you're a last-minute shopper, your particular retailer may sell out a week earlier this year, depending on where you're shopping. A July report from GWD Forestry predicted that the recent droughts and wildfires in those two states may keep the tree shortage going until 2025. The study noted that the number of Christmas trees being planted across the country has also dropped dramatically, falling from 5.6 million in 2010 to 3.7 million in 2015. So when should you start shopping for a Christmas tree? Exporters and tree sellers are recommending people beat the Christmas rush this year and buy early. Our biggest challenges are having enough trees to supply customers and just getting phone calls after phone calls after phone calls of people desperate for trees that don't exist, Jason Hupp of Hupp Farms in Oregon told Statesman Journal. So specifically, he says Doug Hundley suggests Christmas shoppers buy their tree between November 25th and December 1st to get the best selection and avoid a last-minute price hike. We do have confidence people will be able to find a real tree, but they should shop early. I wouldn't be scared to buy one before Thanksgiving, the spokesman added. Sellers added that while real trees are likely to be pricier in 2017, they are mindful of not pushing their customers into a plastic alternative. And that's not so bad. Plastic alternative. For one thing, it never dies. Doesn't burn. It's not going to burn down the house. If we push retail prices too high, we risk pushing some into a fake tree. That's something we have to be sensitive to, Mark Arkills of Holiday Tree Farms in Oregon said, per Newsweek. Local tree farmers added that states like Arizona, California, and Texas will feel the tree shortage the most in 2017. So if you want to partake in this age-old pagan custom, Christmas is not about the Christmas trees, all right? So of course, it's not the actual birthday of Jesus, and I think that's more and more well known, right? Does anybody still not know that? It's not the actual birthday of Jesus, but it was it's kind of sad that the disciples didn't actually celebrate Jesus' birthday from the beginning. And so centuries later, when it came time to say, hey, maybe we should start celebrating his birthday, they sort of, so what shall we do? Well, the pagans have this festival right after the winter solstice where they sort of have this party where, because the sun is coming back, it was getting, days were getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and then at some point they start getting longer, and so they sort of celebrate this fact, and maybe we should have a Christmas on that date. So that's seems to be how Christmas came, and of course, as the Second King has pointed out numerous times, even in Bible verses, it's clear that that's not when Christmas was. That's not when Jesus was born. The shepherds in the fields, in the way that they would only be in the early spring, late winter, early springtime, and in our sanctuary church, we celebrate Jesus' birthday together with our True Father's birthday on the first day of the heavenly calendar, which will be February 16th this year. So that is the if you want Christmas trees, I guess if your kids want Christmas trees, I don't see anything wrong with plastic, personally. Anyway, it's up to you. All right, thank you for joining us this morning. We come to the end of our broadcast, and hope that everyone has a safe Thanksgiving weekend. If you're going someplace today, driving someplace, if you're flying someplace, please be careful. I guess you have to let the TSA agent grope you too much if he wants to. You can't really avoid that. But please be careful, both spiritually and physically, as you go about your dealings on Thanksgiving. Thank you very much, and God bless, Godspeed, and may his kingdom come.